Very good evening to everybody. Conversations from lockdown with myself, Aidan, and this show brought to you, this series brought to you by Kyalami Park Equestrian in association with I4Williams Mumpro SA. And this evening we are chatting to a man based in Port Elizabeth. He's a rider, he's a trainer, and he runs his dealing business from PE, and we want to chat to him all about that and his life in horses and how he got involved. From a very, very chilly and cold Johannesburg, we crossed to Port Elizabeth. Anthony K, how are you and how's the weather?
Hey, Aidan. The weather's actually not bad. We're not as cold as you guys are in Joburg. I've got the heaters on and everything. We huddled inside the house, but yeah, it's not that cold here. We don't get harsh winters.
You're lucky. We are freezing and it's windy. It's just horrendous. So lots of fresh horses. I'm sure lots of crazy antics going on out there. First of all, how are you? How's your lockdown been? How's it been for business? Are you guys still operating? What's the story?
Okay, so obviously right in the beginning, we all didn't know what was going to happen. We didn't know how it was going to affect our business stuff. But as it's gone on, it's got a little bit, people are starting to phone about horses. I've actually sold quite young horses off the farm from the Assegai stud. So, yeah, it's definitely getting better. People are kind of getting on with their lives and, you know, in the beginning of stuff, we didn't really know what to expect.
Yeah. I want to chat to you a little bit later. We'll get to the dealing side and the market and what it's doing and how you operate. But first of all, let's talk about your back history. How did you get into the whole game?
Okay, so I was born and bred in East London. So I went to Selborne. I don't know if you know Selborne. So not a horse.
A good rugby school, isn't it? Selborne College?
Yeah, it's a rugby school. Yeah, I didn't. So my mom and dad not horsey at all. My brother played rugby, also not involved with horses. And it started when we had at Cinsa on the East Coast, just outside East London. And people that actually owned the resort was a girl called Diane Emsley. And she had a couple of horses. I mean, you know, every weekend we'd go there for the weekend and I would be interested in the horses and I'd go for a ride on the beach with her. But obviously I didn't know how to ride. I was about 10 years old. I started riding quite. And then I think for the first year, I would just ride whenever I went to Cinsa. And then I think I decided I wanted to ride. And then my mom inquired at a riding school in East London. And the lady's name was Kim Leyland. She's actually Kim. The funny thing is that I actually learned to ride with her, and then later on in life, I started teaching her. So it was quite funny how our lives changed. I him for probably about, I think about 3 years, 2 years, maybe 2 years, yeah. And I rode my first pony at her. I leased a pony called Stardust, the little roan pony, probably 13.3, and used to run under all the fences with me and the normal, you know, horrible little pony. And then the next pony I got was a pony.
Was that a Welshie?
I think it was probably a little bit of a cross. Yeah, it probably Welsh cross something, but it wasn't very big.
I always found those Welshies quite evil and adept under poles. I had a few experiences.
Yeah. So, and then the second pony I rode was Jessica, and I rode her for about probably a year. And then I started riding at Caroline de Bruyn. Then I moved from Kim to Caroline de Bruyn. She had she was called Caroline Little then. She had a riding school on the other side of town, and she had a very good pony that I leased from her. And I rode that pony, I think in those days in CC and CB. And then just was on his way up. I was 13 at the time. Just when he was on his way up, he actually jumped into a cattle grid, and he didn't break his leg, but he injured it quite badly and he couldn't compete anymore. So then I stopped riding ponies. And then I think that was probably around October, November. and we obviously went on holiday and stuff. And then in the new year, my parents thought, well, maybe we should go and buy you a horse. So we came to Port Elizabeth, and there was a horse advertised. I think it might have even been in the newspaper. It was a horse advertised. And in those days, I think it had jumped C grade. And it was a chestnut, and it was 4,000 Rand, which in those days was a lot of money. You know, I was like, everyone were like 800 Rand or 1,000 Rand. So we came to Pete, tried the horse out. It was the first horse I tried. And I thought he was great because, it was going to be mine. So, so we ended up taking him back to East London. And he actually probably wasn't the right horse for me in the beginning, because he was quite hot, sensitive. And I mean, I'd just been riding ponies. So I don't know if I broke my arm or my collarbone or something within the first week of having him. I tried to jump over some big jumps and fell off,
It worries me that you can't remember which bone you broke. Is that because you've broken so many, or if I broke an arm, I'd go, the time I broke an arm, I can't remember my collarbone, my arm, my leg, my.
Well, I have broken both my collarbones, and I've broken ribs, and I've broken my leg. So I almost think it was a collarbone that I had broken with Gilly. But then obviously later on in life, I actually broke both of them again as an adult.
Yeah. And he was obviously a thoroughbred, or what was he? And who was the person you got him from?
I bought him from a lady called Carol. She was Carol Newton, Carol Wells at the time. She's actually Carol Newton, and Carol is actually our secretary of our riding club here in Port Elizabeth.
Okay.
And he was by, Carol's going to kill me if I don't remember. He was by Hobnob out of a drumbeat mother. So he
had some jumping blood in him with the drumbeat. And
yeah. He was a little horse. He wasn't very big. Because of course I don't think I ever was small. I think I came out with my form on. So I think he was probably 15.3 on tiptoes. And he was quite hot. And very careful, and probably lacked a little bit of scope. He did jump. He jumped to JAs, and he was a very good horse for me. It was my first horse, and he was probably, I won a lot with him. He was a lovely JA. He was limited. I mean, in those days, he only had to jump had to jump 130. So it wasn't. He didn't really. That was his comfort zone. He was good at that level, but he couldn't jump much bigger.
And after that, did he take you right through your JAs? And who were the people that were helping you in those days? You were back in East London. What stable were you riding out of? Did you acquire your own place? I mean, how serious did you get?
Okay, so I was very serious with swimming. So I did swim right through school. And then obviously when I got to high school, it was a little bit like, before the horses were on the scene, I would swim every morning at 4:30 with the Joe and Harris as a competitive swimmer, and then every evening. So the swimming sort of took a back seat with the riding. And I was doing between galas and horses. I would say when I was 13, I got Gilly, and then we moved him to a private stable yard, but they didn't do coaching and stuff. And the girl that I told you about earlier, Diane Emsley, her dad and her used to get Domini down to give clinics in East London.
Okay.
And he started to come down and give clinics at Dave and Diane's place. And I was about 13 when I started with Domini. And then Diane and Dave stopped doing the clinics, and they moved to PE. And then my mom and dad, we brought Domini down. And then Domini taught me right through juniors from 13. So yeah, I've known him a long time, 30 years.
And Anthony, in those days, I mean, how much was happening in East London? Were there shows? Was there a little bit of a scene, or did you have to travel to PE to do you're competing? Because all my cousins are from that neck of the woods, and I don't think there's a huge amount going on in terms of equestrian sport.
Yeah. In those days, it was quite a lot, and there were a lot of people that rode at quite a good level. I think over the years, it's sort of probably come more towards PE now. And obviously with AJ and Chinsia and George, it's also there as well. But we did travel a lot. We used to travel a lot. We used to always have shows at the BEC in East London, and obviously supported all those shows. But obviously, as the horses went into JA, we'd have to come to PE and jump with them. And in those days, you actually even jumped the JBs and JAs up together. They would jump them in a handicap. And then
were you, when you were bringing Dominic down, was he giving other people lessons as well, or exclusively
yes.
you?
So what we used to do, we used to run a clinic. So he used to come down on the weekend, and I'm just thinking, when we started getting Dominic down, I think we actually still lived in town, and my dad then bought a small holding on the Ganubi River, and we then moved to the farm, and then we used to run the clinics from there. And I think we bought the farm, I was about 15, I think, or 16 maybe. And then when we moved to the farm, I then got a second and a third horse, as you do, you know. You get. Sorry, I actually did get horses before that. I had 3 horses before we moved to the farm in livery and stuff. So I had, after Gilly, I then got another young horse called Scottish Piper, and he also jumped to JA. And then Gilly, I was quite, I mean, obviously I am quite big already, so I was quite tall on him to start with. So I think I retired Gilly at 16. I was 16. He wasn't that old. I think he was a year or 2 years younger than me. And then I retired him, and he just lived on the farm. And then I bought another horse called Royal Herbon from a lady here in Port Elizabeth, Tina Roma. And he ended up jumping also into the JAs with me. The Scotty I produced, Gilly I got as he was a C grade. He wasn't an easy horse, and he had, you know, previously stopped with the girl that rode him before. So he was a bit of a handful for me in the beginning, but he did have the capabilities, and he was good, and he did have a little bit of mileage, but he was a little bit like Chip China, you know. But we ended up having a good relationship, and he went on to be a really good horse. Scotty was a young horse that I got, and then Royal Herbon was actually a horse that was a going horse here in PE. So I bought him from Tina, and then I jumped him in 1 or 2 shows, and it must have been shortly before SA Champs, and then I had him in JA as well. And then he also jumped JA. I had those 3 horses in juniors, in JAs. But like a lot of us, I didn't really, my dad was very supportive, my mom and dad, they're both very supportive, and my dad would take me all over the countryside, but he wasn't big on spending money on horses. Whether he had it, whether he didn't have it, I'm not sure. But he wasn't keen on spending the money on horses. So he would always think that, why can't I just make them myself? You know, why can't I go get them off the racetrack and train them up myself, you know? Which then later on I had to do anyway when I started the dealing business. And then
But I mean, that obviously laid the foundations for a solid grounding in what you were eventually to go into, because those are skills that you needed and that you need now.
Yeah. And also I was very fortunate that we were living in East London, and we got Dominic to East London, you know. So, I mean, Dominic taught me right through from 13 to my adults, you know what I mean? So I'm very fortunate that I had the right tuition, and at the end of the day, you actually rely on your parents to make those decisions for you, because, you know, I would have just stayed with my first trainer for the rest of my life. You know, I thought that was, I didn't want to ever, and I don't like change. So that was also difficult for me.
So was there a eureka moment that you went, damn, horses is what I want to do. This is what I want to go into. Did you know that you wanted to make your life about horses? When did you make that decision? And did that affect your schooling, tertiary schooling? Did you go to varsity to study something else?
I think I begged my parents to leave school in about Senate 3. I just hated school. I absolutely hated school. I remember sitting in class and drawing courses of the jumps and building my tracks at school and stuff. So, and my parents, I mean, they just said, you will go to matric. That is it. You will finish school, and there's no two ways about it, and I really didn't like school. I had lots of nice friends, but I didn't like it. It was inconvenient. I mean, in matric, my caption for my photograph was exchange student. So, because I was really never at school. I would take a Friday or a Monday to recover. So, so school wasn't really for me, because I knew I wanted to do horses. I didn't know what I wanted to do with horses. I didn't really know that I had to make money. I thought maybe that, I think as a junior, I didn't really sort of consider, I think I was probably quite spoiled. I didn't consider how I actually got to shows, and I didn't really think about that actually cost money. It was only when school and then I had to actually pay for things myself that actually I realized that, I was quite lucky.
Yeah, absolutely. And what happened to the swimming? Did that fall by the wayside once the riding got serious?
Yes, yeah, I did swim. I did also love my swimming. So I swam probably up to Senate 8, 9, and I still think in matric we did a relay against the teachers and stuff. I think I did still swim in my matric year, but I didn't train a lot in Senate 9 and matric. It was more, I was more involved with the horses. My dad still joked and said, when we got involved with the horses, he still said, I'll buy you a different costume for every day of the week to stop this horse business,
Yeah, well, that would still have been a lot cheaper option.
Yeah, it would have been a lot cheaper, yeah. But my dad loved the horses, he was very competitive, and he loved going to horse shows. And I mean, it was, my mom stayed at home and she obviously ran the business, and my dad would come with me to shows and stuff. So my dad was more involved with the horses than my mom. And my dad was probably more like a brother. He was a bit naughty, and he wasn't a disciplinarian at all, so it was actually just a big fat jol, the two of us, whenever we went to horse shows. Whereas if we'd done it with my mom, she was quite strict, so they were complete opposites.
Yeah. Oh, it's great that you had that relationship with your dad. Now, junior teams, junior success, you obviously made, what team was that in those days? Border?
Eastern Cape team. So yes, I did equitation as a junior, and I won East Cape champs, I think 3 times, the equitation, and I never won the show jumping. I came second, always the princess, never the fucking bride, So then I then made the team. I think I was in the team 3 or 4 times.
Anthony, I've got to ask you, isn't that a little bit fitting? I'm taking a swipe now, but I mean, which would you have rather been, the princess or the bride?
No, the bride. I'm ready to be the bride. I really am ready to be the bride. I'm really ready to be the bride. When I saw videos of Sherman from 5 years, 4 years, 3 years, I'm tired of knocking the last jump down. I really am tired of it now. I think I'm just going to jump before I hit the last jump.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I was in the jumping and equitation teams as a junior, and I think I was in the junior team with Gilly 2 or 3 times, and then I was in the team with Royal Herbon, like the last year, whatever, But it was fair. It was fairly easy to get in the jumping team in the Eastern Cape. If you were jumping in 130, you got in the team.
Yeah. Who are some of your contemporaries
in East London?
Yeah.
Or I mean Eastern Cape.
Yeah.
So Lauren Freitag was, I don't know if you know Lauren Freitag.
I know the name, but I don't know who.
So Lauren actually lived across the river from us, and I did a lot with Lauren. I mean, we used to ride over the river and jump over the fence. We used to put a thorn bush over the the fence and jump over it, and we were crazy in those days. And so Lauren, I competed a lot with Lauren, and then there was another girl called Danny Brink. She also rode in JAs with us, and Ros Bilholm. She also rode with me, and then I'm just trying to think, Trevor Dawley-Jones, and then obviously Claire Rawlings was a bit older than me, but sort of around my age group. And then obviously nationally, people that you would know would probably be Paul Gerard, Kath Davis, Stacey van der Merwe, Dominique, Janita Baxter, Heather Mostard, all that crowd.
Okay. Yeah, Janita and Heather were from my neck of the woods, my crowd.
Yeah.
So you finished school, you finished your junior career, you're still based in East London. When did the move to Port Elizabeth happen? Why did it happen? After school, you obviously finished your matric as your parents wanted. Was there a gap year? Was there overseas riding, trip abroad? None of that.
Yeah. I thought there was going to be a gap year or 2 or 3 gap years, but I was like, I had a rude awakening that there was no gap year. I had to start working. So I did the livery yard, and my dad built stables and stuff for me in East London. And obviously I had quite a big stable yard, riding school and everything in East London. And I did that till I think I was 24. I did that till I was 24 in East London. So I did that for like 6 years in East London. And then I think I just
it was paying its way. You found your feet and clients came, and you got involved in the coaching.
So then what happened? So actually after I had Herbie, he wasn't an adult horse. So then I sold him to one of my juniors, and I actually bought a horse that Anne-Marie Esslinger was buying from Diane Snodgrass called Flying Cinders. And Flying Cinders in those days was probably one of the nicest thoroughbreds ever. And he didn't get a good vetting. So I asked Diane if I could buy him from her, obviously at a reduced price. And I bought Flying Cinders from Diane when I was, I think, 19. So, and then I jumped Flying Cinders for a good few years. I remember actually having him vetted, and then I didn't like what that vet said. So then I had him vetted again, but the vet said, don't buy him. So I had him vetted by another vet, and the second vet said, also don't buy him. And
so
my
got
dad,
a third vet.
so my dad said, well, why are you asking all these vets? Because you're still going to get this horse.
Yeah.
So I got Flying Cinders, and you know, I must say that it's one horse I never regretted buying. He did have a lot of soundness issues. He was the first horse that I jumped my first World Cup on him. I think I was 20. I jumped my first World Cup on him in PE, and he was amazing. He was amazing. He battled with soundness, you know, but he never said no. He just jumped and jumped and jumped and jumped.
Tell me about him. Was he another thoroughbred, or so he moved on to the warm bloods?
Not yet. He was a thoroughbred, and he was by Craftsman out of a Trocadero mother. He was 17-1. He was probably one of the nicest horses I've ever ridden. He was a little upright and had a beautiful canter, didn't have a good trot, and had a very good jump. And he was rideable, kind, careful, scopy. He just didn't have good legs, unfortunately. No, but if he had good legs, he would have been amazing. And I jumped him for quite a few years. I had, like, you know, soundness issues through the time that I had him, but I managed to keep him together and patch him up, and the vets used to look after him and stuff. So I did manage to keep him sound, and I jumped quite a lot of, you know, nice classes with him, and he was good to me, and he was a horse that actually took me around the big classes, you know. A very very similar temperament actually to Sherman, Flying Cinders.
Yeah. Beautiful pedigree on both sides, on the sire side and the dam side for jumping. Were you into pedigrees in those days? Did you look at that, or was it just about the horse?
I think obviously, I was quite friendly with Rogan and Greg at the time as well. So obviously, they had guided me a little bit, and with me wanting to start healing and stuff, I obviously knew that I'd have to know a little bit more about pedigrees and things like that. I was quite lucky that my mom was more like, I would get a bit like a faraway look when you started to go to the third and fourth generation. I just eventually. And my mom actually really cottoned onto the breeding. And I remember for my 21st, Rogan actually bought me a breeding book. And my mom from then on became a bit of a boffin with the breeding. And I would ask her, how's this stallion bred and how's this one bred? And eventually she knew all the pedigrees. So I didn't really need to, and I could just ask her. So yeah, I was quite lucky like that.
Yeah. So, how did, again, he was in East London, you weren't yet in PE, and you were around 20 years old, and you were going to pick up the story as to how you moved across to PE and why.
Yeah. And so then I moved. So then I started dealing, obviously in those days, I would buy horses from the racetrack, or I'd buy horses from Diane, and I would deal them in East London. And as time went on, I thought, I do want to do this more seriously. And I do want to do it out of a place where it's more, there's no trucks that go to East London, and there was transport all the time. So I then looked at the options. The one option was Joburg. The other option was Durban or Cape Town. Cape Town was ruled out straight away because of the African horse sickness. So it's difficult, the African horse sickness. So I then decided Durban wasn't really an option for me. And sadly, I wasn't going to move to Joburg. So
why?
I love
We're
Joburg.
having such lovely weather.
Yeah. The funny thing is that I think I'm a little bit similar to Jade Hook here. Jade and I agree a little bit the same. Like, she's living in Joburg now, and Joburg's nice for the riding. So if I had a string of horses, I would have to be in Joburg. But I only have one top horse, so I'm definitely not relocating for him. And I love PE. I've been all over the world. My brother lives in England. My folks are from England, so I've traveled a lot. And I definitely wouldn't want to live anywhere else. I love PE. It's not East London, but it's not Joburg. It's somewhere in between. And it's, even when I came back from Joburg, I would go to Joburg for a horse show when Sherman was staying with Dominic and Karen. I'd go to Joburg, and I was excited to get there, and I was excited to ride at the show. But when it was time to go home, I was ready to go home. And when I flew over that coastline and I'd see PE coming in, I was born in East London. I was like a fish. I swam in the sea all the time. So that is where I wanted, that is where I've wanted to be my whole life. I don't want to live in Joburg, and maybe at a later stage, if I do get, maybe more horses, and maybe I have a very good horse after Sherman, and I do have to be in Joburg a bit more, maybe I'll think about doing something a bit more permanent. But I definitely wouldn't want to, I wouldn't choose Joburg over PE, sadly.
So when exactly did the move happen? Because you spoke Flying Cinders, you were early 20s, and then
yes,
and then you decided for your business you would move.
So then at 24, I moved to PE, and obviously my parents were not very happy about that, because they had obviously set my entire business up in East London, and then I decided to move to PE. So for the first year, then and then this is when it really became hard, because now I was running I was running ebb and flow in East London at my parents' property, and my dad would run around, and if a pole broke, it just miraculously got fixed. And if the water trough didn't work and there was this, I didn't even think about being fixed, because they just got fixed for me. Mm-hmm. Then when I moved to PE, suddenly I had to obviously pay my own way. So I fortunately had quite a few higher grade horses when I was living in East London, and then I decided to sell most of my horses. I sold Hammer to Laura Neal, and it was a very good horse. I don't know if you remember Hammer. It was a liver chestnut thoroughbred that Laura jumped probably 20 years ago.
I don't remember.
He jumped it in World Cups and stuff. So I sold Hammer, Captain Kane to one of Barry's clients. And there was like 4 or 5 horses that I sold, like of my open horses. And then I moved to PE, and then I bought a townhouse, and I lived in a townhouse for about 3 years, and I just freelanced here, and I rented stables from Billy Null, who's actually across the road from where I live now. And I was there for about 3 years, and I took one of my grooms, or 2 of my grooms from East London, moved with me to PE, and I rented a barn, and I used to just keep my own horses there, and that's basically how I did it. And then the one day I was driving past the property that I'm on now. I was actually driving past it to the stables where my horses were at Billy, and I thought I really liked that property. It had a for sale sign. So of course I phoned the estate agent, and it was whatever it was. It was way more than what I could afford. But of course I still inquired about it, and it didn't have a house or anything on it. So I asked about it, and I really, really liked it. So I went home, and I chatted to Daniel, who was my partner at the time, and he said, no, we definitely can't afford to buy a property like that. We're gonna have to build a house and blah, 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 blah. So anyway, I didn't listen to him, and I went ahead with it. And at the time, somebody told me to make an offer on the property, on the piece of ground. So I did what I thought was the right thing. I made an offer, and 2 or 3 days later, I phoned the lady to say, can I, has the deal come through? And she said to me, sorry, it's been sold to somebody else. So I was really bummed about it. And then I found out who the person was, and I phoned the lady and said, if you ever do want to sell the property, please let me know. And about 18 months later, she phoned me and said that they weren't going to build, and she wanted to sell it. So of course, I then paid, I don't know, a few $100,000 and more for it, actually. That's when I bought the stables and the house and everything on this property. And then I've been here now for 14 years.
And in the interim, when you arrived in PE, before you got set up at what is now Ebb and Flow PE, you say you were freelancing. What does that mean? Freelance riding, or did you have dealing horses? Did the dealing business continue in those?
I did have dealing horses, and I rode all the dealing horses myself, actually, in those days. And I did a lot of teaching. Year after I moved to PE, no, I'm talking rubbish. About 3 years after I'd been moved to PE and I was teaching, I started teaching Christopher van der Merwe. And then Chris was probably my first serious pupil, because when I moved to PE, I didn't really want to teach because I'd been teaching quite a lot in East London. So I'd almost gone a bit sour with my teaching, and I didn't really want to teach a lot anyway. So I did sort of teach because I had. And I started teaching Chris van der Merwe. And I think Chris was probably the person that actually got my excitement up with teaching again, and got me more interested as well. And because I really enjoyed, he was very enthusiastic, he was very hardworking. He just never, ever, ever got tired, And I think also with me is that I do have a little bit of that personality where I just go, 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 go. And Chris was also a little bit like that, As I've got older, I think I've become a lot slacker. Christopher was very, very driven, and I love that about him. I mean, I used to go and teach him, and I think we would do 5 or 6 or 7 horses in a row. And in those days, Chris really didn't talk very much. I mean, I think for the first year, I didn't even know if he could speak, because he just never spoke. He never said anything. He was just, but he definitely took it all in, So I think Chris, for me, has probably been one of the most exciting people I taught. I love teaching him from the beginning. You know, his temperament was so good. His attitude, his work ethic was just incredible. You know, from a little boy, he was so focused.
How much joy has it given you to see him go on and achieve and attain what he has?
It's been amazing. The funny thing is that when I started teaching Christopher, there was something different about him. There was always something different about him. I mean, I still remember that when I started teaching him, I think he was 9, and I think I taught him up until he moved to Joburg. So 15 or 16 or however old he was. But the funny thing is that, you know, because he was always around adults, you almost forgot how old he was. And I mean, I still remember him riding your horses here, and he couldn't have been more than 13. And I always thought of him as being an adult. He just, you know, he was just so professional, so grown up. But I always did think I always thought he was going to be fantastic. I mean, you know what I mean? Obviously, not just for myself, but I think he's an amazing talent for South Africa. He really is. I mean, you can put him on anything. He can ride anything. And yeah, maybe it did come back from the days of us putting him on everything. You know, he did. He rode he rode the good ones, the bad ones, the easy ones, the difficult ones. You know, he rode them all, you know. And I mean, I still remember going to shows and he'd ride 12 or 13 horses and he would just go from one to the next and one to the next. And, you know, I'm sure he used to get bored of hearing me say, don't do this and don't do that and do this and do that, and whatever. But he just knuckled down and did it, you know. And the funny thing is he's never, ever felt like he's never felt like he knows it all. He's still as humble as he is. Like, still when he phones me, he'll ask me for my opinion. And I'll think, God, Christopher, you've like won everything. You don't need my opinion, you know. But it's just amazing. He is a very, very, very nice guy, Chris. He really is. His mom and dad did a fantastic job with him.
How important as a coach is having a good student, one that flies the ebb and flow or the Anthony K banner for you? Is that the best marketing you can have if you're looking for other people to join your coaching ranks, is to have somebody like a Christopher flying your flag?
Yes, I definitely think it is. But the one thing I've also learned though, Aidan, is that you can't have 5 Christophers at one time. You actually can't. That is the one thing that I learned very, very quickly, is that you can only have a handful of good people, and then it takes so much energy out of you that at the time when I taught Christopher, I hardly rode. I went through a stage where I didn't really have a top horse for about 10 years. So all my efforts went into teaching, and I really loved it. I mean, it was amazing because you literally saw unbelievable results, you know. So I loved it. But you can't think that you're going to teach, you're going to have that. You can't have 10 of those people. First of all, there aren't 10 of those people running around. And secondly, you can't give those people that amount of effort. You know, it does take a lot out of you. You know, you got to, and really, really, really do it properly. You've got to take it. You've almost got to take it personally. You got to be upset when they knock that pole down. You can't just shoot the breeze and say, oh, you know, your horse jumped well, bad luck. You needed to know that you needed to go to the front line with that person. And I wasn't able to ride at top level when I was coaching and stuff, because it took so much out of you, you know. And I don't regret it. But what I do know is that you can't do that with too many people. And also then you get, there's obviously politics and there's jealousy, and, you know, if you've got one, you can't do the other one. And, you know, so that it does become.
Yeah.
I did love my coaching, but I would love to, I mean, like most coaches, I'm sure, I would actually like to just coach, you know, a handful of Christopher van der Merwes would be amazing, you know.
Yeah.
You know, but they're not. But then there's not a lot of them around, you know. And you've got to understand that a good coach actually does make a mediocre rider better, you know. So that's, you know, actually teaching Christopher was easy. Teaching other people's not easy.
Yeah. Getting back to your business, you say you were a little bit, in terms of your riding, in the wilderness for 10 years,
Yeah.
mainly because of the coaching. How did you get back into it? I mean, is it all about finding the right horse, the right fit? Or is it an attitude that you just go, right, well, now I want back in. I'm hungry. I want the competition arena. I want the success.
Yeah, I think that it did come down to that a little bit. Like, I decided I didn't want to be 75 years old and not have a property, and I didn't want to be that person. I wanted to make sure that I was financially secure, and I couldn't afford to have top horses and have a property and a lifestyle, you know. So I decided that's what I wanted to do. But I think I probably started riding. I had a couple of horses that jumped open, but then I sold them. And I'm just trying to think how it came to. So then I did ride a stallion called Revolder, and I rode him. A guy in PE Arbor imported him into the country, and I rode him for about a year, and I got him to the 120s, and he had a colic op, and he died the day after the colic surgery. So that was quite disappointing. I was quite despondent about that. And then about 3 or 4 months after that happened, Neville Cumley, that's got the Fon stud, he then offered me the ride on Corbett. It was the stallion that I then jumped after Revolver. And Corbett was a D grade when I started riding him. And then I rode him for a couple of years, and he also jumped into the big classes and was a very good 140 horse. And I did jump him in some 150 classes, but he developed COPD. And that about a year, he went on for about a year after he developed that COPD, and then he obviously also had to retire. And then after Corbett, I then didn't really have anything for a while. I would say 5, 6, 7 years. I didn't have any horses. I had 1 or 2 nice horses that came in, and then I sold them. Like I sold Camden Blue to Ashley Hausberger. And then Dominic was down for a clinic, and I said to him, I've got a very good horse for him to buy, you know, because obviously being a horse dealer, you know, you have to even sell your coach a horse, you know. So Dominic came down, and I said, I've got this very good horse for you. It's from the Assegai horse. It's named Sherman. So he said, oh, great, whatever, he wants to try it. So he tried the horse, and he loved Sherman. So he had him vetted, and he had 1 or 2 things on his vetting that Karen and Dominic decided they didn't want to take him. And then I asked Kerry if I could buy him, and then I bought Sherman from Kerry, and basically that was the first horse that I had then kept in the last sort of couple of years. And then so I got Sherman in 2012, I think, or 2013. I've had him about 7 years now, and I got him as a 110. Yeah, I think he jumped a couple of 120s, but was quite naughty and stood in the corner and was a stand up on his back legs and stuff. He was a bit naughty, and I rode him for a little bit in 120s, and then quickly put him into the 130s, and then I took him up to Joburg to jump at the Easter show, and he just stayed at Sellerhof for the next few years. He just home. I think I brought him home once in 2017, and then, yeah, he went back again, and that was more or less what he did, you know. And he's, yeah, I mean, you know Sherman, so he's been an amazing horse. He's got lots of heart. He's brave and scopy, but yeah, not always the most careful. But he's been a wonderful horse, and a very nice horse for me to have back. He's a very nice horse for me to have got me back into the big classes again. You know, he's kind, And I'm not a big, a lot of people do know this, I don't ride a lot. So I don't practice a lot. I don't ride a lot. I think that's probably been my downfall most of my life. I have been a bit lazy with my riding. Without being big-headed, I think I found it quite easy. So I would always go with minimal effort, you know. I never liked shooting horses. I just wanted to jump, you know. So, I mean, I remember when Dominic used to come down and give clinics, I mean, I used to drive him crazy because I would try and miss the flat work part. You know, I'd come down halfway through the lesson, you know, and I'd say, oh, I just had to do something and I had to sort this out and had to sort that out because, you know, I would watch from my bedroom window and see who else was in the lesson. And when they'd done 20 minutes of flat work with no stirrups, I thought, okay, it's time to walk down to the arena now and get on. And I'd get on and he'd say, you've missed the flat work. And I said, I'm so sorry, I won't do it again. And of course, you know, Dominic will tell you, it was just, and that I've always been a bit like that. My horses are nice to ride on the flat, but it's very simple. I keep it quite simple. They don't do any fancy movements. They walk, trot, canter in a straight line, short in length. And I've always done a lot of schooling over little jumps and stuff. So I make my horses a little bit full and stuff. So I don't do round and round and round and round and round. It's, you know what I mean? It's not my thing.
How did it work with the horse being at Domini? How much traveling were you doing? How often?
So yeah, I traveled a lot. I mean, I would literally, I'd literally fly up, I think every second week. Sometimes it was crazy. I would come home and for like 2 or 3 days and I'd fly back. And so it was backwards and forwards and backwards and forwards. And I think also jumping a horse, you know, I mean, obviously, you know, he didn't go 150 straight away, but jumping a horse at open level, you do need to ride that horse yourself, you know, because, and also I didn't have a lot of horses at home. I mean, at the same time I had Sherman, I did have Assegai Cognac and Assegai Cantalara. I don't know if you know Cantalara, Elise Steenkamp.
Elise Steenkamp's got him, I think.
Yeah, so that was my horse. I had the two brothers. So I had those horses here in PE at the time when Sherman was in Joburg, and those horses both jumped 120 and 130. So those were nice horses for me to do a little bit of a practice. But I've never been very diligent with my riding. I suppose if I could do things over, I'd probably be a little bit more hardworking with my horses. You know, I was always, oh, okay, that's all right. We'll try tomorrow, you know. Yeah, I think I've got horses because I love them, you know. I love the horses and stuff. But I do like going to shows, and I'm a bit like now at the moment, not having a show to work towards, and I see everybody jumping their horses on Facebook, and I think, when's our first show? You know, I was still joking with my groom and said, you know, I should maybe put Sherman into foal, you know. So, but it's, yeah, so for me, I'm very goal oriented. I'm sure some people are, but I don't want to go and practice and practice and practice and know that there's no show coming up, you know. So at the moment, it's not good for me because I just haven't really ridden. Sherman's been on a big fat holiday, and so have I, and my young horse has also been on holiday. So yeah, I think once we know when there's going to be shows again, it's something to work towards.
Some of the results with Sherman, you've jumped around derbies. Was he the first horse that took you around derbies, or had you been around before?
Flying Cinders jumped the mini derby at the old showgrounds. I think he was 5th or 6th in 2 years in a row. So I jumped the mini derby on him. And then Sherman was the first horse that I jumped the derby. So the first time I jumped, I had 12 penalties. The second time I had 12 penalties. And then 2018, I had 2 down and he was 6th in the derby. And then last year, I was clear up until the duck, and then I had 4 or 5 down at the end. I don't think I was fit enough either. You know, I think it wasn't really Sherman. I mean, he was actually clear till out the dark, and then as he came around the corner, I just gave up. You know, and the funny thing is that it is one class that I think he could actually do very well. He's a big jumping horse, and he finds derby stuff easy. So yeah, I think last year for me was a bit disappointing. You know, I also was going through lots of things in my personal life. My relationship of 21 years came to an end last year. So a lot of things sort of came to a head last year, which also wasn't, you know, so hopefully, the next, I mean, Sherman's 15 now. So, you know, he's probably got, you know, he hasn't jumped hard and I've looked after him. So he probably could jump for another 2 or 3 years, you know.
Anthony, back to your business, and
Yeah.
let's go right back to when you first arrived in PE and you set up and you bought that piece of ground, you built your house. How many stables were there on the property, or did you have to develop the whole thing?
There was nothing on the property. There was nothing. All there was a big water reservoir that was awful. So it had nothing. We had to build arenas, house, stables. So it was, but the nice thing about that is you actually put it where you wanted to have it. It wasn't somebody else, you know, you did it the way you did it, you know, way you wanted.
And was that a stage development, i.e., well, I'll sell a horse, I'll build a couple of stables, I'll sell another horse, I'll build this, and so you go and so you progress?
Well, the funny thing is that when so I had 2 townhouses and I sold both the townhouses. So I bought the piece of ground and then I had the money to build the house. And then I did so many changes on the house that I went way over the budget. So I actually had cash to build the house. And then I ended up, I think, spending too much money on the house, and then the stables I couldn't finish. And I was very fortunate that the year that I moved in here, we had SA Champs here in PE, the junior SA Champs is in PE. And we were finishing the stables around the time of SA Champs. So I was very lucky. I still remember I sold 11 horses in 11 days. So I was able to put my roof on my stables.
Brilliant. Yeah. And how long have you been there now? So, I mean, tell us about how much you've grown, because AJ also came into the scene and you've got a long association with him. And then there was Ebb and Flow branched out into George with Chintzy and AJ. So how has the business grown?
Okay, so when I moved to PE, so then when I started Ebb and Flow here 14 years ago, I had a couple of people that work road for me and stuff. And then probably a year or 2 years after I had moved in, Marie Lamont, she was Marie Norkier then, who's now my business partner. Marie actually worked for me, but part-time while she was at varsity and stuff. And then obviously she left varsity, and then she worked for me permanently, and she did the horses and you know, did the sale horses and stuff and all that jazz. And then she then left and to go get a real job, because obviously her dad wasn't very keen on her studying to be an accountant and then going to ride horses for the rest of her life, you know. And I think she went back to work for about a year, maybe not even a year. And I really, really battled with getting a work rider. And I think I'd been spoiled because she had done a lot of stuff for me that I didn't really know. You only know what somebody does when they're not there, you know. And I just phoned her up the one day and I just said to her, like, you know, be my partner, come back and be my partner. I said, because I can't do this kind of without you. So then she came back. And so I would say Marie's been my partner for probably, I want to say 10 years. Maybe it's give or take, you know, a year or two, I don't know. But I want to say 10 years she's been my partner, or 9 years. And Marie's been a very, very, very positive influence in my life. And she's, because I know I look so easygoing, but I'm actually not. So, yeah, so I think with Marie, she's managed to also deal with my temperament quite well, you know, because I am a bit hot-headed, and, you know, I just shoot from the hip, sad as it is. And that is obviously offensive for some people. But Marie was great. Like, you know, she just said to me, you know, we need to evolve, and, you know, we needed to go from 16-hand short striding thoroughbreds to warm bloods, because that's what the market dictated, you know. So she had a lot to do with us evolving into a different, and also with me selling horses, it wasn't good for me to be riding a horse that you wanted to sell to a 13-year-old girl, because then they would all say, oh, well, it's being ridden by a big man. How's it going to go with a little girl? So generally, it was a very good move with Marie, because she rode, most of the horses that she rode would go to little girls or you know, girls in the sport. So that was a very good move for us. And between I mean, Marie's a showing judge as well. So it was we covered all the bases, you know, the jumping, the dressage, the showing, equitation, you know what I mean? We covered lots of different horses in the market.
How does the business stand today? Is it a livery yard with dealing horses and you coach, or is it primarily just dealing horses? If you want a horse to buy, or you're looking to buy, or you're looking to sell, I'll send to Anthony and he'll sell it for me. Or where do you source your horses? Tell us about the core business.
Yeah, so it is generally, we have got one or two liveries, one or two people that stable with us, but that's not really what we do. It's more selling. That's the part that I love the most. I actually love the selling. I think I probably like the selling more than I even like the riding. It really is something I enjoy, and some people don't like it. I love it. I love working with people, and I like the challenges. You know, when somebody phones you and says, I've tried out 59 horses, you know, and I say, oh, okay, no, I've definitely got the perfect one for you, you know. So I like the challenges. I like finding the right horse, and I like following up, and, you know, but also it comes with its own set of challenges. Sometimes you sell a horse that doesn't turn out. And over the years, taken horses back, and we've done swaps with people, and we've tried to make it work with them and stuff like that, because that's what you do to protect your, you know, your reputation and stuff. So yeah.
You started off in thoroughbreds. Do you still have a few in your dealing string, or when you talk about the evolution, does everybody now just want a warm blood, and is that justified, or is there still a place for the thoroughbred?
So we do have a combination of both, but it is probably more warm bloods now. But I do think that thoroughbreds are going to come back. I think people are going to be, I mean, especially with the COVID story, I don't think people are going to be that keen to import horses overseas. And I think people are going to start looking in South Africa. And the thoroughbreds, they are good horses. They are good thoroughbreds. I mean, if I was 20 kilograms lighter, I would be trying to ride thoroughbreds, because they are good ones. There's probably not any thoroughbreds that are going to jump me around World Cups, but they do work for girls. You know, they really do. They're not weight carriers, but, you know, they're fine up to 70 kilograms, you know?
Yeah.
And I really like thoroughbreds. I really, really do. I mean, I don't have the choice to ride a thoroughbred over big jumps, because I'm too big to ride them. So I do need a stronger horse. But I mean, if I think of thoroughbreds, like, I mean, Gonda's thoroughbreds that she had, and Gale, and all those thoroughbreds back in the day, I mean, those horses would still be as good as these horses today.
Yeah. Obviously, when people were riding thoroughbreds exclusively, we knew a lot about the thoroughbred pedigrees, and the ones that were the dramatic lines, the Jerezes, the noble chieftains, the drumbeats, trocadieros, craftsmen, as you said, etc., etc. What are some of the pedigrees that you look for today that you think are worthwhile coming through?
Okay, so my favorite pedigree of all time is Camden Park. That has been my favorite pedigree. Right from selling horses when I was 18 years old till today. I love the Camden Park. we actually have a Camden Park that we've got 2 warm blood babies out of, from Assegai stud. So yeah, I like the Camden Parks. I like the Cahals. Bronwyn's Lily was a Cahal. I mean, years ago, I liked the centenaries. I don't even know if there are any centenaries anymore. Yeah, there's lots of pedigrees that are nice. Obviously, the Al Maftis from years ago, and now there's the son of Al Maftis, like the sheep horses, and yeah, there's lots. There's the sale from Seattle is also very nice. So that's from the same stud as where Al Mafti came from. There's lots of nice pedigrees out there.
Are you finding any good JPEGs, being a son of Camden Park, a pedigree that you like, or have they disappointed?
No. So the JPEGs are not consistent though. Some of them are quite hot. So they're not. Where Camden Park, I think, Marie will be able to tell me, but I think over the span of the last few years, we've probably sold at least 35 or 40 Camden Park horses. And I really don't think there was a bad one. There was not a bad one. Even the one that would have been the worst one was still a nice horse. So
can you still find them? Are they still?
No.
You're looking for Camden Park mares. So
yeah.
do you then put your eye over what's racing? Look at the race cards. Look at the pedigrees. Have a look what's coming off the track.
I used to. I don't do that so much anymore. I actually like, if somebody, like other dealers that have brought in thoroughbreds and stuff and they advertise them, I almost want to, I don't really want to do that process anymore. My clients actually want horses to be more going. So horses straight off the track, there's not a big market for those horses anymore. There's so many of them, you know. There's so many of them available that it's not a, we stopped doing it because it was just every Tom, Dick and Harry was doing it, and it wasn't viable for us. It really would
and
be
also
better
the market, as you say, got smaller. People want primarily warm bloods. So how does it work, Anthony? Are you looking for potential horses at shows in smaller levels, kind of 90s, meter 10? Horses that you can buy on and then put some work and turn a profit? Is that how you source them, or are you selling on behalf, almost as agents for people who will send horses to you to sell on their behalf?
Well, I do both. So we'll do whatever, you know. I mean, people will send us horses to sell, and I'm always on the lookout for a good horse, because you can always sell a good horse. It doesn't matter when it is, or when they say the market's not good. The market is, you always sell a good horse, no matter what the market is doing. So if I'm at a horse show and I see a very nice horse jumping in the meter classes and whatever, I'll make a note about it, find out about it, and follow it up. You know.
What boxes do they have to check? So you looking for a horse that you think is sellable. What comes into it? Size, conformation, pedigree, and then performance in the ring? Do they have to tick all those boxes, or will you take something that is perhaps small but has other attributes like scope or step, elasticity, athleticism? Do they have to tick all the boxes for you?
I think we've got to that stage now where we are quite hard on the horses. When somebody wants to send us a horse, the very first thing I do is I give Marie the name of the horse. She runs the record check on it, and she checks its records and makes sure that it's all fine. And then we get videos and stuff of the horse. And it all depends, you know. Like, what I like for myself is maybe not necessarily what I'm going to choose for a 12-year-old girl, you know. So, like, I might not necessarily like a slightly short-striding thoroughbred or short-striding warm blood that jumps a little bit economically over the jump and doesn't flick its back legs and back and tail into the air, you know. So I might want a horse that's a little more quirky. But generally, the way the sport is now, you can't really have naughty horses, because if somebody comes to try a horse and the one is fly backing and kicking and doing all sorts of stuff in the corner, but it has a very good jump, and the next one comes out and it has a very good jump and it's well behaved, they're going to buy the well behaved one. They don't. There's very few people today that will actually put up with that. You know, they just generally don't. I just think in years ago, people kind of just rode whatever they had to try and make it work. You know, and if the horses were a bit naughty, they just rode them a bit longer, or they did this, or they did that. The sport's been it's a little bit different now. The juniors or the juniors or the children going into juniors, they're quite spoiled. You know, if the horses are not good enough, then get rid of that one and get another one. You know, one that actually doesn't do that. So we've had to basically do that with our business. We can't, I mean, like when people tell me, oh, the horse is really nice and it's this and it's that, but you know, you just need to do this. And just say, well, you can't sell horses like that anymore. People just don't want a horse that's difficult. They want a horse that actually ticks all the boxes and they're prepared to pay. And if they're prepared to pay, they must get what they want, you know, and I understand that, you know. In our day, it wasn't like that. We got on whatever it was and we made it work. Now, these days, they don't have to.
And I suppose there's so much more competition for horses out there, you know, with the two big studs breeding and those auctions every year and breeding really nice quality horses, more coming into the market. A rider can afford to be very, very picky and fussy with what they want.
And also, I'm also very fussy. So, I mean, I wouldn't buy a horse that did that if I can have one that doesn't do that. If a horse is well behaved and it does all the right things and whatever, what a pleasure. I don't want to have to feel like I'm going to land up in a tree with a horse if I don't have to, you know?
Yeah. Your association with Assegai Stud, how does that work? Or is it a business arrangement? Is it just friends and you have first pick of their horses off the farm? Are you an outlet source for them where they use you to sell their horses?
Yeah, so Kerry, the whole relationship started probably a year before I bought Sherman from Kerry. But I've got the sole mandate for Assegai. And so you can phone and ask about the horses, whatever. And she's not good at marketing. She's not good at selling the horses. So, and that's my business. I enjoy that. You know, she's not really interested in trying to sell the horses. She wants to breed them. So I'll go out and we'll do like an open day and we'll take people and go and look at them and whatever. And yes, I do get first pick of the horses, and it's actually quite exciting because I was actually telling somebody today that I've got quite a few horses that are now coming through that are probably going to be nice horses for me, you know. Whereas before, maybe they weren't big enough, maybe they weren't even though I kind of used to ride whatever was given to me, I've got quite fussy in my old age. So I don't like there's certain things I don't like, you know. I don't mind a horse if it bucks and plays and does something like that, but I don't like a horse that spins or stands on its back legs. I don't want to ride horses like that anymore. And I think that changed when I broke my leg about 13, 14 years ago. You know, I just thought, you know, if I'm hurt, I can't really do my business, you know. So I don't like to ride any horses that are, you know, my own horses like Cognac and Candid were cheeky. You know, they would buck and play, but I understood them and I knew them. But generally, the way the market is now, horses have actually they've got to be nice people. They've got to be nice to ride, nice to handle. There's very few people out there that actually want to walk a horse and it plays tap dance on their head. You know, the horses have actually got to be nice to handle, nice to ride. Because like you said, there's so many other people that are selling horses out there. You know, there's going to be one that's around the corner. So you've actually got to give them what they want.
As someone who makes their bread from this business of selling horses, is it ever possible that you find a horse that you want to keep? So many and you go through with that? Or is everything always for sale because that is the business?
Oh, yeah. There's lots of horses that I get, and I think to myself, I really would love to keep that one. But generally, Sherman is never for sale. you know, after I did jump him in the big classes, 1 or 2 people have asked me about buying him, because he would be a lovely horse for a schoolmaster for a young girl that wants to get into big classes. But Sherman will never be for sale. He's going to retire with me, and I'm going to build his house next to my swimming pool, and that's where he's going to live. And he doesn't owe me anything, you know. And like Cognac and Cantalara were young horses. I did know that they were going to be for sale. And I think, like Queen's Gilly, my first horse, my Gilly, he retired, Flying Cinders retired. Some of them just don't have a price. And some of them, yeah, that's just what it is, you know. I mean, sometimes I've sold horses and I've really hated it, you know. I think if I think back to when I sold Hummer to Lara, that is probably one of the hardest things I ever did, selling, because I was 20 years old at the time or whatever, and he was knocking on the door to jumping in the open classes, and he was such a nice horse. So you were losing that dream, and he was, you know, I brought him on as a baby. So yeah, there's a lot of horses you actually do. You really would like to keep them, but unfortunately it's the business, you know.
Anthony, in terms of marketing of horses, what's the best way to go about doing it? Are you letting the horses on your books kind of do the talking in the ring for themselves, or as a dealer, do you have to use whatever means you have available to you, magazine adverts, social media, all that kind of thing?
Okay, so we actually do everything. I think it's important that you do everything. You don't just do one thing and not the other. I think, and over the years, I've realized that you can't do enough advertising. Some people say, oh, you're overdoing it and whatever. You can't, because I'm sorry, the more advertising you do, the better. You can't do enough. Even if it does irritate some people, because you're all on their news feed and everything, the bottom line is that if you're selling the product, you need to advertise it as much as possible. Having said that, I don't like taking a horse that has been privately marketed badly by somebody. So people generally in the industry know that I'm not crazy about taking a horse if you've prostituted it out and you've tried to sell it to every single person yourself all over social media, and then you come to me as your last resort. So I'm not crazy about that. And over the years, most of my clients now, when they want to sell the horse, they just come to me first, which is much nicer way of doing it, because we know how to advertise the horse, we know how to market the horse. And yeah, I just think that some people are not good at doing it, and they must not try and sell their own horses, you know.
Do you operate off of a website?
Yes, we have got a website. I must say that our website, I don't think we get a lot of traffic on the website. We get a lot of traffic on Facebook, and a lot of word of mouth. And obviously, over the years, we've sold horses to people, and they keep coming back. You know, instructors and other agents, they keep coming back. So they might buy a horse 5 years ago for one client, and they'll buy another one, you know, and it'll so and go on like that, you know. And it did help as well having Sherman in Joburg, because I was mixing in those circles all the time, you know. It's hard to know whether my business got busier having Sherman, because it was quite busy before that anyway. But I just think that when you're at a show and somebody's phoned you about a horse, when you see them at a show and you go, oh, that horse that you phoned about, you know, and you quickly talk about it, you know. So it is nice being a little bit more involved.
You have the satellite stable as well in George, Evan, Flo, Chinsia and AJ. We mentioned them earlier, but we didn't expand. How does that business work? Are you in partnership with them? You own the property, they own the property. How does it work?
That's their own property. AJ and Chinsia, that's their own property, and was actually AJ's parents' property. And it's a completely separate business, although they actually run it as an ebb and flow division. Same as Anna in East London is also ebb and flow in East London, but it's a separate business. They just ride under our name.
The name Ebb and Flow, how did that come about? Is that because you were on the Ganubi River, it's tidal, or?
Yeah, it's exactly. It was the name of the farm, Ebb and Flow, the ebb and the flow of the tide. And I loved the name. And obviously I'd ridden all my horses in juniors under Ebb and Flow. And then when I moved to PE, I decided I wanted to take the name on, and it just stuck. You know, it wasn't even, I never considered not doing it. That's what I wanted it to do. But AJ's very involved with the marketing. He does all our marketing. And yeah, he's very involved with the sales and stuff. And I think I'm not planning on retiring, but when I get older, I think AJ obviously would take over the sales, more sales, because he is good at it. And yeah, and Chincy and AJ are amazing. They're both divine. We love having them part of our team. Marie and I get on with them very well.
How big is the operation now? So how many horses, if you were full, say at any given time, would you have on your books?
45, 50.
So it's a big operation, and it's a lot of horses to feed if you're not selling them. So how long do you give? How does each horse come into the yard for sale, given a certain amount of time? If it doesn't sell within that time, then...
Okay, so Aidan, I would say we've got about 45 to 50, maybe 45, 55 horses on our books. Not all of those horses are stabled with us in PE. So we have some of them in PE, and then obviously I'll have probably between 5 and 10 horses on my books in Joburg, and the Joburg horses are mainly open horses. And then AJ and Chinsia will have a couple of horses there. So it is more difficult to sell the horses in Joburg, and there are at different other places. It is easier having the horses here with me in PE because it's a bit out of sight, out of mind, you know, so it's very difficult to sell a product that actually is, you know, but I understand with the open horses, if the clients are happy to keep the horses and keep them riding, and we market them and we get a commission for selling the horses, that's also a win-win situation, because the horse is jumping with the person that's trained it, and it just carries on. So often I do like that setup. I like it when a person has like a 120 or 130 horse they want to sell, and they carry on riding it themselves, and I carry on marketing it. That actually works quite.
So it's a commission-based structure. Is it the same deal all the time, or are there different tailor-made deals for different circumstances?
There's not, you know, the old thing about it used to be 10% or an unwritten rule that it's this or whatever. You know, if I take a horse in and sometimes I'll take a horse in, Marie gets quite cross with me because I'll get a bit passionate about a horse and I'll take it in and I'll say, yes, I'll take over all the costs and whatever. And we keep it to 3 or 4 months and then that commission is different. I will then make an arrangement with the owner and tell them that I'll pay them this amount when the horse is sold. So we do have different arrangements for different people. And our stabling and our rate for horses that come in, we don't actually charge people for riding. So it's just a very basic stabling. So it's not expensive because obviously we get our money when the horse is sold. Yeah, so, but there's not one way of doing it.
What do you anticipate the market is going to be like once we come out of this? First of all, you said a good horse will always sell. Are you finding that you've managed to sell horses during lockdown, during COVID? The economy is obviously going to be hit. Business is obviously going to be hit. Do you expect that everything's going to, within the horse dealing world, everything will continue as it has been continuing, as it has been? Or are there changes afoot?
Okay, so I definitely think there are going to be changes. I don't think you're going to be able to sell substandard horses. You know, I think your mediocre horses, I think the people that are still going to buy horses are the very rich. But the people, your entry level horses and your mediocre horses, those are not going to sell. I've noticed that horses we have sold have been young, expensive horses off the farm, and the people that are asking about horses are mainly open horses and the higher end. And I think that is the way the trend is going to go. And that's why I think thoroughbreds are going to come back in, because it's going to be more cost effective. I think the good thoroughbreds are going to come back into the market.
What is your take on the way prices of horses have gone, the way the sport has gone so professional, the amount of money that's involved in the sport, in the purchasing of horses? Is it healthy? Is it a progression, or do you think it's got a little bit out of hand? Or are they different? Or am I generalizing too much? Is it a case that, well, good horses will go for a lot of money, medium horses, there's that market, and there's the lower market as well?
I definitely think the market the prices of horses have gone crazy. I mean, the money that people spend on horses these days, I mean, it's crazy. I mean, I'd love to be able to go and spend that much money on horses. It would be lovely. So I think generally though I think the sport has changed where it is based on what very good horse you can buy. It's based on if you have the money to buy a very good horse, then you will jump at the top level. Not necessarily the best riders that are jumping at top level anymore. They're all good riders. Everybody that jumps at top level will be a good rider. But who's to say that one's better than that one? That one is probably sitting on a better horse or a more expensive horse. So it is a little bit like that. You can't exactly go to Wimbledon with a cricket bat. You need to have very good horses. It's the same as, like, for example, now Chris van der Merwe. Chris, he's a brilliant rider, but he needs a good horse. He can't do it without a good horse. It doesn't matter how good you are. You're not going to make a mediocre horse win at top level. So you do have to have good horses. And I think the whole thing is that now it's the most important thing is to have the money. You just actually have that is the most important thing. I think the talent is not as important as the money, actually. Years ago, I think, they were very talented, and, we all just sort of rode thoroughbreds and whatever. But I think nowadays, people are spending huge amounts of money on horses. And yeah, it can make you a little bit despondent, because then you think to yourself, well, how do you actually do it if you don't have that kind of money? But I think you can do it, but you have to be clever, and you have to buy. So if you have limited funds, you have to do it in a clever way. You have to take a chance and buy a young horse. I always recommend people that have limited funds to not go and spend that on a horse that's been a bit proven. Take a chance, go with a very well-bred horse. Like South Africa now, we've got such good blood that comes into the country. You can get yourself a Diamante de Simile or Canaan or whatever. You can get brilliantly bred horses. So you don't need to actually, if you're a good rider, you need to invest in babies. You need to invest in young horses and produce them yourself. It's a longer process. You're not going to have a string of horses, that somebody else can just import 3 horses and they've got an instant string of horses. So I think people that, like your older people that have been in the sport, when I say older, people that have been in the sport for longer and have not been able to spend that sort of money on horses, they also do the same thing, and then, like me, after Sherman, I don't really know. I've got a young horse. I've got horses on the farm. I don't know when after him I will have another horse that jumps at that level. But at the end of the day, that's also fine. You know what I mean? It's actually fine. I've enjoyed. It's been amazing. and I'm sure I will have another very good horse, but I'm also not going to put myself in huge debt to be able to buy horses like that. You know, I want to be able to, if I can rather do a couple of young horses, sell one young horse, keep one, sell one young one, keep one, until I maybe end up getting another horse as well. You know, I do love the sport, but it's not everything to me. You know, it's not, I go to bed at night thinking, oh my God, I have to have another horse. You know, it's not, there's other things that make me happy, you know. And yes, maybe if I'd been a bit more serious, maybe I would have, my riding would have done better with my riding. But the most important thing for me has been to enjoy what I do. You know, I've enjoyed riding, I've enjoyed the teaching, I've enjoyed the selling. So all of that has been fun, you know. And I have a very nice lifestyle. I don't have a boss. I've never had to work for anyone. Nobody tells me what I want to do. If I come out of the arena and I've knocked the last jump, my horse is mine. Nobody's going to tell me, why did he hit the last jump? You know? So everything, I think in life, you make those choices, you know, and if you want to actually have top horses and you want to have an owner that's going to own 5 of your horses, you're going to have to answer to that person, you know. So, yeah, the only advice I give to people when they have got limited funds, I say to them, buy a young horse. Go to Callahoo, go to Capital. If we've got horses at Assegai, buy a young superstar that kicks the lights out, jumps up into the air, flicks its back legs, and looks like a complete freak. Take a chance on a horse like that. Don't buy a mediocre horse that has maybe gone and done a couple of shows and you want to try and improve it. Rather take all the money you've got and buy the best young horse that you can possibly get, if jumping 150 is what you want to do, you know.
And then you've got to be shrewd as well. You've got to find those horses with the potential and don't be set in your ways that's the one that is going to carry you to the big time.
Exactly.
I think a mistake a lot of people make, and a mistake I certainly made, is you hang on to horses that possibly aren't as good as you expect them to be for longer than you should before turning a profit and finding the next one.
Yeah, because it's an emotional bond. So it's an emotional thing. So you want to make it right, but you do need to get a horse like my young horse now. She's lovely. She's fabulous. She has a beautiful jump and everything. She's a lot smaller than Sherman. I mean, if I'm going to ever ride her around the big classes, I'm going to have to be 10 kilograms lighter at least, because she's a lighter boned horse. But I also might jump her to 1.30 meters, and I might be offered a lot of money, and I might need to sell her and put that into 2 other younger horses, you know. And that's basically what you've got to do. You've just got to carry on going, and you don't know. People think, oh, I want this horse to jump 1.50 meters. You don't know what the horse is going to jump, and you don't know how good it is. And there are very few horses that actually can jump those big jumps. You know, there's a lot of horses that can jump to 130, 135, and even 140. But a proper horse that can skip around the big derby and jump big World Cups and it be easy for it, there's not a lot of those horses are running around, you know. That's why people have to go overseas and buy them, because they're like a needle in a haystack here, you know. I mean, even me finding Sherman was an unbelievable find, but he's not a Bambi, you know. He can jump a beautiful clear round, but he can also canter around the corner and be a bit dumb and just knock it out by the roots, you know. So, you know, so you've got to understand, and he would be an exception for South Africa, you know. He would be one of the few. So to find that very, very, very special horse, it is hard, you know. And you've got this dream, and I know with myself, when I bought Sherman, I thought he was going to jump in the big classes when I got him, and had he got to 1.30 meters and he looked like he wasn't going to, I would have been devastated, you know. So you do hold on.
But that's when one has to be ruthless, when that you don't become governed by that emotional bond that, well, I'll give it another go, and I'll give him another year, and if it's not, if the right fit isn't there, if you truly want to be at top level, you have to have a bit of that ruthless streak, that you're prepared to move on and look for the next one, and have the next one almost on the back burner coming through, so that you're not again sell that one and then you're nowhere, that there is something else to continue that flow and that rhythm going all the way up.
And often you'll have a horse, often you'll sell a horse when it actually is it looks so unbelievable. Like when I sold Cantalara to Elise, he was in 1.20 meters and he was looking amazing. Everyone asked me why I wanted to sell him. I thought he was a little on the small side for me, same as Cognac. They're both unbelievable horses. I didn't sell them when they started to look bad. I sold them when they looked amazing. So that is another thing that is hard with dealing, is that you sell them actually when they're at their best. You don't sell them when they're at their worst. So that's also a hard pill to swallow, is that you actually sell them when they're unbelievable. You know, you normally sell them when they've had their last amazing show.
And the skill is to recognize when they are at their best, and not to go, well, if they're this good in 120, 130 is going to be even better, when perhaps it's the opposite. It's just those two holes up on the upright prove a bridge too far, and then suddenly all that hard work is undone.
I must say, I err on the side of caution. I sell them before they have a chance to look bad, because the minute you go to a show and maybe you come around the corner and you ride the horse badly, or you do something wrong, or something goes wrong, everybody remembers that, you know. So I always say to people, don't be greedy. You know, I mean, when I sold Cantalara, I had loads of people saying to me, oh, you should have told us, we would have bought him, we would have paid more money, this, that. You know, the bottom line is you've also got to put a cap on it and say, this is what the horse is worth to me. I've made money, and if I get this price, I'm going to sell it. You don't be greedy, you know. You let the horse go. And the most important thing for me, when I've ridden a horse for 2 or 3 years, like Cognac and Cantalara, is that they actually do go to the right people, because those horses have not been quick dealing horses. I've had them for 4 or 5 years as, you know, as babies and stuff. So they've been part of my life. So you've got to know that when you place that horse, you know, that it was the right person. You know, I mean, Cantalara was only tried out by one person. Elise was the only person that ever tried it. So, and that is the perfect scenario.
Well, it's also good business for you that it goes to the right person, because if it progresses, it flies your flag. Goes to the wrong person and it goes wrong, they go, oh, they bought that from Ebb and Flow, and then people think, well, you sold the person the wrong kind of horse. So it's in your best interest to make it work.
Yeah, no, it is like that. And, you know, but unfortunately, we do sell horses, and they often don't go to the right people. And that is quite hard. That is the hardest thing that I've found in the business. I don't like that. You know, often you'll have a very, very good horse, and you know that you're selling it to somebody that actually is not going to do this horse justice. But it is unfortunately the business, and you can't always choose your buyer. You know, it is nice if you can, you know, but often you can't, you know, and yeah, that is the unfortunate part about the business. Often you do sell horses to the wrong people.
Anthony, outside of horses, you have other interests. There was a period where you weren't riding. You talked about Derby. You came in a little bit unprepared, and the reason for that is that you took some time off to go into bodybuilding, and we've seen you in magazines and on calendars. What's all that about? Where's the interest?
Okay, so it was in so in fact, I rode at SA Champs in the Bob Charter in 2017 in November. I think you were commentating at that show. So that was SA Champs in 2017 in the November. I didn't ride till the Derby the following year. I started riding Sherman 6 weeks before Derby. And I'd had a little bit of an unsoundness issue with him as well. Okay, so in 2017, we were at St. Francis for New Year. And I mean, there's no, I mean, anybody that knows me is that through my life, I've gone up and down on the scale my entire life, you know. I can be lean and trim and then I can look like I could play for the front row for South Africa, you know. I can look like a rugby player 1 month and I can look like well, I don't think I ever look skinny, but so my whole life I've had to watch what I eat. And in 2017, we were at St. Francis for New Year, and we're sitting with a whole lot of people, and everybody was saying, oh, that they want to do this bodybuilding, this competition, you know. So I was like, my ears pricked up, and I thought about it. And at that time of the year, I mean, my last show had been October. I'd been eating for the first team, so I was probably very overweight by then anyway. And in the December, I decided, so on the 1st of January, I decided I was going to do this bodybuilding thing, and I was going to do a competition, which was in March. It was January, February. So it was like 10 weeks I had to be ready for the first competition. And my body fat percentage was 22%. And Roy, my trainer, said he doesn't think this is possible to get from 22 to be stage ready, you know. So I said, well,
what percentage stage ready? That's like 8% or something.
Yeah, between 6 and 8.
Yeah.
So I was very, very good. I was very diligent. I think Roy. So Ruth actually, Ruth is I've known Ruth since I actually taught Ruth when she was a child in East London, and when she moved to PE, she was married to Roy, who was my trainer. So Roy and Ruth actually rode with me, and I actually got her to ask Roy to please train me for this bodybuilding show. And he was very hard on me. He said to me, you must be at 5 o'clock in the morning, you train every single day, you must eat this, you must eat that, whatever. So, and the one thing I don't like is fish, and he put me on a fish diet, and eventually I just couldn't eat the fish anymore. And I didn't tell him I stopped eating the fish, and he actually did work it out. But I think it was 10 weeks to the first show, which was in Durban, and my body fat, I think, was probably 8 or 9%. So I was lean, but I still looked a little bit too full for the division. I did the over 170, so the tall category in the men's physique, the board shorts and stuff, and the athletic physique. That was the one I did. So the first show I did come third, but I looked a little bit too big and too full for that division. Then the next show I did was Western Cape, which was, I think, 3 weeks later, and I was second there. And then the last show that I did was an IFBB show, and that one I won. So I went third, second, and first, and it was amazing. I loved it. It was an unbelievable process. It was incredible to see how your body changes. I mean, especially by the last show, I just couldn't believe that looking in the mirror, what was looking back at me. It was just incredible, you know, and it all came down to hard work, no cheating, no straying off your diet. I mean, and luckily with my swimming, I had that I have that in me where I just become like a robot. And I just said, right, 5 o'clock every morning, I got up and I trained, and I ate at this time, and I ate this, and I did this, and I didn't cheat. Where I did fall to pieces a little bit was I did 3 shows, one after the other, and you do a magic week where you do your water drop and your water up, and your decarb and your carb up, and all of that to try and make the muscles look bigger. And that part I battled with the 3 shows in a row, because the 3 shows were 2 weeks apart, and you do a magic week, and so I was just done a magic week, then I'd have to do another magic week, and then I'd have to do another magic week. And by the last show, I really was battling to keep it together. I still remember I mean, Roy, would kill me if he knew, but I still remember, I think on the Tuesday or Wednesday before the last show, I just thought, I can't. And I got in my car and I drove to McDonald's and I bought the biggest McDonald's burger and chips and cheeseburgers and chocolate milk. I just went completely overboard and I ate everything and I was as sick as a dog the next day. And then I went to the show. I did win that show and it was great. I loved it. And it was a very, very nice experience. I loved it. It was amazing to be standing on stage and random people shouting your number. You know, that was just for me. And it was a very different experience. You know what I mean? Obviously, I've done the horses my whole life and I'd swam competitively, but the bodybuilding was a very different thing. You know, you would see all these people walking around half naked, but there was nothing sexual about it. It was, you were admiring these perfect bodies.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, and what goes into getting there? I mean, it's a huge amount of work and dedication. Why couldn't you ride at that time? Did you just decide that your focus must be on bodybuilding, or was it a time thing? There was just not enough time for the two of them.
I actually think that because right in the beginning when I did it, I put on a bit of weight in the beginning, so I was a little bit heavy. And I think with Sherman being in Joburg and I was here in PE, it was difficult to try and ride during that time because I thought, let me rather do it properly than try and do it a little bit here, a little bit there. And I still remember I flew up once. It was over Easter show. I flew up for a night. And Roy, my trainer, I thought I'd be clever and I'd book a 6:30 morning flight from PE to Joburg so that I could miss training that day. And so I'd have to be at the airport at 5:30. So I knew it was impossible for him to make me train. He made me train at 3:00 in the morning. I had to train before I went to Joburg, and when I got back the next day, he made me train at 10:00 at night. So he really, really was. He really was tough, and it was brilliant because I needed somebody to be like that with me. You know what I mean? Because otherwise, I will push the boundaries. And but it was an amazing experience. I loved it. And
are you still into it? Are you still doing it? Are you still training?
No, I'm still training, and I'm probably eating a lot more than I should be. I think I've probably put on 5, 6, 7 kilograms. I've been a little pig during lockdown. I think I'm quite lucky. I do lose weight quite easily. I'm quite good like that. I'm a little bit feast or famine. You know, I don't do a little bit. I either will eat the 25 chocolate bars or I'll eat the cauliflower and broccoli. You know what I mean? It's not a bit of both. But I'm probably going to do, I would like to do Arnold's Africa, but I'll probably do that after Sherman's retired. Yeah. I would like to do it. I would like to do that at a slightly higher level once in my life. I don't think it's something I want to continue doing all the time, but I would like to do one very big show, whether it's SA Champs or Arnold's or something like that. I would like to do one big title.
And final question before we say goodbye. In the ring, is there anything that you really want to achieve? Are you hungry for big competition, or like you said earlier, you enjoy the riding, but it's not the be all and end all?
I think I do enjoy it, and I wish I was a lot more competitive. Obviously, the one thing I would really like for Sherman is I'd like him to win either a World Cup, a Grand Prix, or the Derby, or I would like him to win something because I think he is a great horse, you know. And he was knocking on the door in 2015 and 2016. Then I had unsoundness issues with him in 2017 and 2018. And then I decided to do the bodybuilding, so I didn't ride. And then last year I hardly rode. So it's been very on and off, you know. So I think the whole lockdown has also made me realize that I need to actually now not waste him. He's probably got 2 or 3 years left. I must actually try and give it as much as I can, because I might regret it in years to come.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Anthony, it's been wonderful chatting to you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your honesty. Thank you for all the insight into the world of horse buying and selling and dealing. It's been enlightening.
I hope I haven't left anybody out.
Well, if you have, I'm sure that they'll get hold of you, and we can make amends. We'll post it on the thread.
Yeah.
Thank you for so and so. Yeah, it always happens. But thanks very much from me to you. It's been great chatting.
It's been great. Thanks, Aiden.
Take care. We'll see you. We'll see you at shows hopefully in the near future.
Cool. Thank you. Bye.
Take it easy.